To start with, I always find it so interesting when the art is actually better earlier on than it is later. Usually the beginning art might be a bit shaky for the artist because they're getting used to the characters, their designs, and their personalities, so I'm always shocked when it turns out to be the opposite. I wouldn't say the art is bad or anything, but there's a distinct issue that isn't present early on, but does appear later, and that is sloping faces. When the characters are face on or complete profile, this isn't an issue, but the moment they're at an angle, their faces have this super awkward slope to them that I hate. Something else I dislike is the white open mouths. That's a pretty common attribute across manhwa, to have an open mouth with nothing in it, but something about the shapes of their mouths with it is just so unattractive to me. It sucks because I find Jaen to be one of the sexiest characters out there, so if it weren't for these things, the art would be impeccable, but here we are. It's not the worst art by any means, but it does have some glaring issues, also yaoi hands. But though the art isn't the best or most consistent, this story gives me everything I look forward to in Omegaverse stories. I'm a fan of non-con, though for some people this would be a negative. Though if it makes a difference, the Omega is the perpetrator in some of it, which is unique. Still, there's male pregnancy, child rearing, smut all over the place, elements of nesting behavior, deep entrenched trauma, power bottoms, and nodding. I'm not going to pretend the story is perfect by any means, still the Omegaverse world has so many delectable bits that make it one of my favorite settings of all time that it's hard for me not to love any story with so many aspects of that setting in it. I also must mention that we actually see Jaen's pregnant belly. As much Omegaverse is out there, seeing a visible baby bump is pretty rare, and seeing it on Jaen is provocative, as our precious Alpha Taiyun says. It has many of the standard Omegaverse elements we usually see, but with a very powerful bottom reminiscent of the leading Omega from Unromantic Romance. It just scratches an itch for me as an Omegaverse fanatic. This goes beyond Omegaverse though. There's a lot of corruption, mobsters, and the like, which leads to a narrative fraught with intense revelations. It feels a bit like a mystery or thriller, so even if you're not as voracious about Omegaverse content as I am, I think there's still something there to really up the ante. The revelation about Taiyun's parentage, the reasoning behind Jaen's ex's cruelty, and the exploration of trauma and healing add so much to your standard Omegaverse setting. It certainly isn't for everyone, of course, as there's a ton of violence, mental and physical abuse, and toxic relationships all over the place, but it's still such a good time. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention one of my favorite parts about this whole story, Jaeyoon. After all the pain and suffering in the main story, we're blessed with a ton of sweet and fluffy family time. I can't tell you how many times I've reread the extras because they just bring me so much joy. There is more drama to be had in the extras, don't get me wrong, but there are a ton of fluffy moments. We also get a lot more development for the side characters, such as Jaen's boys, which I really appreciated. However, I don't think these should be extras because so much is revealed in them that completes the main story. Unlike many other side stories and extras in other manhwa, they feel necessary. Just be aware that the extras are not truly extras and they are a must read.